Right. Well, cheers for joining us, chaps.
No problem.
Chris, your second appearance, although we don't talk about the first one too much, because that's when we had those crappy little mics. We're all gathered around one microphone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to say then?
Well, Apple Podcasts actually rejected that episode being you because the sound quality was that bad.
Are you sure it just wasn't because I was on it?
They were like, you actually can't upload this. The quality is too
you can't
bad.
have him on. He's a muffin. You can't have him on.
It. So we can actually say officially we've got two debutants.
Okay, I'll take that.
We've got the what would you say, the official writer of Southend United, in many ways the voice of Southend United. I'm sure this is going to be the most recognisable voice we've had on this, isn't it? Surely.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Don't big him up too much.
But do you not remember when Chris used to do the commentary with me? So he was great days.
Yeah, they were.
I actually hadn't realised, Chris, that you did the voiceover for the for the DVD.
The funny thing was that the clips that you've been playing, we had great fun producing that DVD actually. So what happened was it was me, Nick, and Dave Scriven at the time. It was the press officer. We all got together. I think it was at BBC Essex in Chelsea.
Yeah, it was at work. Yeah.
Yeah. And Nick recorded the commentary then, which is actually how come all the names are right, because obviously it was done after all the games. So
right.
Nick got all the names right, and then I had just the easy bit really. So I just had to sort of say August was a great month for Southend and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it actually took a couple of days to do, but that was actually great fun. Obviously the games and everything speak for themselves, but the moments behind the scenes and things like that make it even more memorable than just what happened on the pitch as well.
Yeah. To be fair, I did the commentary dry. I didn't look at what was going to happen. They just showed me these highlights. So I did have a good old bash at whose name was who. So I didn't do too badly.
I've never known that.
Them, you think, who was that player for Team X? Who's Huddersfield number 19? I have no idea. I can't remember.
Yeah. I thought when someone praised you for making a joke the other day, I think it was when Freddie scored and you said a Greek tragedy.
The Greek tragedy.
I thought, well, to be fair, he had about 6 months to think of it.
To be fair, I might have used it on the radio commentary as well, though.
Well, yeah, no one will never know. You have to dig that one out, try and find it.
So that's mad. I'd never have known that wasn't the official commentary. I think that's good. That's like, I think it knots together quite well. I'd never have known that. You'd never have guessed.
Nick would have been on holiday for half the season, don't forget. So he wouldn't have been at most of the games, so that should have been a giveaway.
I couldn't remember most of October, most of February.
Yeah, well, when you're in New York.
Yeah.
No, it was. To be fair, he did a good job on that, so it does sound good. Listening back to it.
Yeah. But all the stuff was made by Dave Scriven because he was a pro, wasn't he? He was really good as a press officer at Southend.
Yeah, he did really well. He put all the clips together, and yeah, it was just a good time. Really, it was a good team off the pitch as well as on it.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of. I started going in '97. But this was kind of the season that I really, I guess you say, I fell in love with it because it was obviously like we've gone and won the league. But yeah, I can, and still it's like it's 14 years ago, and it's still like the highlight of my footballing life.
It was a bloody good time though. To be fair, you look at that team, you look at some of the players there as a whole. They were 1 to 11. Or whatever the numbers were, 1 to 11, they were quality players, all of them, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
And I think also at the time, maybe you didn't appreciate just how good that team was. I think maybe you seem to almost take it for granted that the team's doing well. Oh, we're going to win this week. Oh, we're going to win next week. Yeah, we'll win there. And because that becomes the norm, you kind of get used to it and almost forget how bad it has been in the past. And obviously how it's been since. You look back now, you realise just how good it was. And even the unsung heroes of that team, like your Cole Pettifers and your Mark Bentleys and your Shea Wilsons, who probably at the time didn't really get much of the limelight. they played a key part. And Nick's right, there were some really, really good players in that side and stood the test of time. And it's good to see them still being remembered to this day.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Particularly someone like Shea Wilson. I think, I mean this in the nicest way possible. At the time, I think he was just like he was the left back, same as Jupp on the other side. He was the right back. I don't think many people were like raving about them at the time, but no, they will certainly go down as the most memorable.
What do I write down? Mitchell Cole as well, to be fair, and that sort of player.
Yeah, he was another one.
Quality players, and you don't realise, and I don't think anybody would, even at that time, how good they actually were. In hindsight, it's great, and you look back now and you think, that was great. That was a good time. I don't think you probably realise, even if at the time, you wouldn't have realised how good it was.
Yeah. So I've sat and I've watched all those clips from it, and I've just said that I spoke to my dad about it, I spoke to Ian about it, and I really wish that I'd have been like a tiny bit older and I'd like a better understanding from like almost like a tactical standpoint, because we played some really good stuff. Some of the football we played in the build up to a load of the goals, it was no fluke that what we were doing. We were really good.
Yeah, and technically, if you look at the likes of Kevin Mayer, he was a class player, and then you look at Mark Gower, he went on to play in the Premier League. He had a real creative edge. Obviously, Freddie speaks for itself. Yeah. And you had Wayne Gray, Sean Goater, the options off the bench, that people that could come in and make an impact. It was just all over the pitch. There were some really, really class quality players, but also that would be, how long? But I've been writing about Southend for 20 years in one way or another. That was also the nicest group of players we've had. So that made it extra special as well. And arguably, that was probably one of the main reasons for the success, was that they had their team spirit among themselves. And that went a long way, I think, just how hard they all worked for each other and the club. And that's probably what got them over the line in the end.
And they were good professionals, weren't they? They were really good pros, and they all, I think, to a man, worked so hard. Even if they weren't the best, Freddie scored. How many goals did Freddie score that season?
25, I think.
25? So Freddie scored 25 goals. Obviously, Sean Goater did it all. But even those that probably weren't the most gifted footballers, like your Duncan Jupps, your Shea Wilsons, and
dropped his phone.
They just worked so hard. Where's Chris going?
On the phone. It's all right. Sorry, I'm here. Don't panic. Don't panic.
It was a dull comment. Sorry.
Sorry. Do carry on. I don't want to steal your limelight. Sorry.
But no, just those players like the Shays and the like, they just work so hard.
Yeah. No, you're right.
That's the thing for me as well. On top of being a good team, they work hard. That's the thing. Sometimes you can be a good team. If you don't work hard, you don't get anything. You've got them, and they put, like you said earlier, the Carl Pettifers and the Jupps and that, Mark Bentley. They're probably not the most technically gifted, but 100% commitment every game.
Yeah.
Talking about Luke Guttridge, he did really well in providing some of those goals, and also scored some belters as well, didn't he? Just seeing those clips that you've been playing.
Yeah, he was a good player actually, but he was one that you thought would go on and be a real sort of regular in the Championship side, but funny how it worked out. You never really got that.
He left quite early on, didn't he? He didn't stick around long. Didn't he go on loan to Leyton Orient?
He went
near
to
the start
Orient
of the season.
I think when we were in the Championship, he didn't really.
McCormack sort of come in and took his place.
McCormack came in, didn't he? And
he was good as well.
Gower played centrally at some points as well, didn't he? So yeah, you are right. I think he sort of was around just up until the Man United game. I think he left, if I'm right, shortly after that.
Yeah.
And then he came back for a few games.
Because did he not play this? This might be well off the mark. This is a complete guess. Did he not play against Leeds in the cup game that got us the tie against Man United? Because we beat Leeds, didn't we? I think he might have played in that. So yeah, he was round about that time. He was still knocking about. That was November.
I can't remember last week, let alone those.
Yeah. Gary Hooper scored twice, didn't he? That game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was definitely involved because we played Leeds twice in a row We played them in the league and in the cup.
They beat us in the league.
Yeah, in successive games, and I'm pretty sure Guttridge was involved either off the bench or from the start. So yeah, he definitely did feature in that Leeds game, and then I don't think he played really much more after that at all.
Yeah, no, that was a real shame, really, because I think he was. There was as we've said already, there was quite a few underrated players in that team, underappreciated. But I would have put him at the top of that list of the underappreciated players, and sadly, it never really kicked on for him. Had a good, solid career in sort of League 1 and 2 after that, but never really stepped up, did he?
He was one of those ones that if you spoke to anyone in the team or anyone that played alongside him, he would be the one that they would all pick out as being a really good technical player. So he was certainly appreciated by those that were around him. Yeah. And that often tells a tale, doesn't it? It's sort of similar in recent years to your Will Atkinson and players like that. They get a lot of value from teammates who appreciate the hard work that they put in. And Luke scored some important goals as well. He didn't score many, but he scored some screamers. I remember him scoring against Bournemouth, I think, at Roots Hall. That was a key win. I think they were on top in the game. I think they were a bit fresher than us. They hadn't played as many games over the Christmas period. And I also remember him, because although Swansea sealed promotion, the game which pretty much made it more or less certain was a win against Blackpool. And we were struggling that day. We weren't at our best. Freddie scored a typical Freddie goal. And then Luke Guttridge popped up with the winner. And that was arguably one of the most important goals of that season. And I think did he score in our first win of the season at Bradford as well?
Bradford,
so, yeah, he was one who's popped up. He probably didn't get that many goals that season. He probably only got 4 or 5, but he seemed to be a scorer of important goals.
Yeah. It's weird how sometimes you do get players like that, don't you? Like a big game player, like wasn't going to shy away from it. But yeah, no, you're right. He didn't score many tap-ins at all, did he?
No, he just scored left foot, right foot. He scored from distance, and yeah, he was a. I might try and track him down. Actually, I haven't interviewed him. Obviously, I saw him last year when the squad got back together.
He come for that game, didn't he?
Yeah, I didn't get the chance to sort of talk to him that night, but I might try and track him down and do a story and see what his view of the his time at Southend was and how he views the way it went after he left Southend.
Yeah, that'd be quite.
There were some good defenders, weren't there? Like your Barretts. Did I see Spencer Pryor got injured, didn't he, that year?
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't play quite as much, did he?
I can't remember what he did. What was the injury? Was it his knee? I can't remember what he done.
I think he twisted his knee and he played. Yeah, he played a few games, and then there was quite a lot of competition because Soji came in as well, didn't he, that season in January?
Yeah, in January.
And then you had Andy Edwards. You obviously had Adam, Spencer Pryor, Lewis Hunt could play centrally as well. So although it wasn't a big squad, you did have a variation of players that could sort of play. And I think Andy Edwards had a run in the team, and he did well. And during the time that Spencer Pryor was injured, so he couldn't get back in. But I think he did play a bit more during the second half of the season, and then he got injured again. So
yeah,
I
looked it up. I think Pryor only played about 20 games in the whole season.
Yeah.
How long had he been then?
43. No, he was coming. That was his penultimate season, wasn't it? So he retired. His last season was in the Championship. So I think he would have been mid to late 30s. I think that would have been roundabout. But that was good to have that a blend of experience as well. So obviously you had your Andy Edwards, your Spencer Fryers, your Sean Goaters, and they were invaluable for the younger players that were around them, really. And I think it's important to have that mix. I think in recent years we've lost that. We've just tried to get the older players, and we've shied away from signing the younger players that are hungry from non-league, that are coming up and want to prove a point. And there's got to be a balance, and I think somewhere along the line that balance has been lost at Blues in the last few years, and we've tried to over-rely on players that are your older, experienced players who do have a part to play, but there has to be a blend, and you can't just rely on the older players. You can't have a team of just completely older players, and we need to get back to having that kind of blend.
We've had it a little bit
with the mix. That's why it works so well, because you had the youth, you had the experience, you had those players that would get through the hard work, you had the flair players as well. And where did they finish in the league? So it works.
Yeah. And Tilly as well, so you haven't mentioned him yet. He was the man who... Do you remember him? He was the one who created that team spirit and brought everyone together. It was a small squad, but everyone felt part of it, really. And I think, he's not someone who complicates things tactically. It was pretty much 4-4-2, but everyone knew their jobs. Everyone knew what they were doing. And in the lower leagues, that's invaluable. And
I literally had that written down about how it was so black and white. It was 2 banks of 4, 2 strikers. It's such a simple game when it's played properly, and that sounds really obvious, but that has got lost. Not just at Southend. I think there's definitely too many coaches these days in this country trying to go with like the foreign approach, because it is. It's all these new formations that come in now. They're all imported. Yeah, and you see that you can still, and it's become a bit of a cliche that if you play 4-4-2, you have to play long ball. You play unattractive football. It's not the case at all. We played some really good football that year.
I always say to Clarkey and Pennyfather, just keep it simple. Why complicate? With the greatest respect, we're not Barcelona, we're not Real Madrid. Yeah. It's Southend United. Just keep it simple. Once you've done that simple thing, then you can move on. Just keep it simple. Don't complicate things.
Completely agree. Yeah. Completely agree.
And I think also in recent seasons, we've kind of gone from one formation to another, to another, to another. And I think a team has to have a kind of identity. And this team that we're reflecting on now certainly did. You knew, as you just said, you knew what you were going to get going to watch Southend. You had 4-4-2. One winger would tuck in a bit, he'd be working hard. Gower was the fair player on one side, solid at the back, Freddie with a bit of magic in attack, and it just worked. And you knew what you were going to get. Whereas in the last couple of years, Southend have seemingly changed formations pretty much every half, let alone every game.
I'm not convinced just Southend, though, to be fair.
No, I think
it's not. No, it's a problem with modern football. I think people it's like panic mode. It's like, oh, that hasn't worked straight away. I've got to change it. No, just leave it. Just leave it, and it'll click eventually.
No, you're right. Yeah.
No, so you only mentioned
more of a simple formation kind of guy.
Who's the one player we haven't mentioned yet?
Flabs.
Yeah.
I
just so good at the back.
Yeah, he was fantastic. It always used to annoy me a bit when people used to criticise him about his lack of height and that, because for every goal he let in for his lack of height, he probably saved twice as many by being able to get down low to either side. So
and we've had big goalkeepers that weren't very good. So exactly. It doesn't really work like that. It's not all on the height.
No, and the all-round game, I think he'd definitely be up there. Every time I go and pick an all-time Southend team, the goalkeeper's the hardest position I find to actually predict, to pick, because we've had so many good goalies over the years. But Darryl's definitely up there with one of the best I've seen in my time at the club, and I think that's reflected in the success that Southend had with him in the team. Time and time again he made. And the goalkeepers, you kind of often get forgotten. You remember the goals and you remember the moments, but even Walsall away, for instance, it didn't get shown on that highlights package, but we drew 2-2, but he made a stunning save in injury time to get that point. And Hartlepool away was probably one of the best goalkeeping displays I've ever seen from a Southend player. It's just time and time again, and almost those saves get taken for granted as well. But he would have won probably not as many points as Freddie obviously did, but his saves would have double figures in points.
There was a fair few games that season that we only won by like a 1-goal margin, and you think all he's got to do is pull off one good save in that match, and that's sealing those points.
Yeah, 100%, and it was crucial, and he was a real key part, and off the pitch as well. He was a good character. He's a funny guy, so he was always good.
And the win double over Colchester.
Oh yeah, yes. Don't forget that.
I hadn't actually written that one down. I actually forgot to mention it.
Was that the year that they beamed the game back to Redthorn?
Yeah,
they did the beam back, didn't they? And Colchester was sponsored by a skib company, And when they went 3-0 down, Colchester, I did say they're sponsored by a skip company. They really are rubbish. That was only on the south of the county frequencies. The north of the county was completely different.
So was that one on the day as well, or did you have 6 months to think of that one as well?
No, that was on the day. That was on top of my head. That was just being rude.
Yeah, have you been back to Colchester since then? Or?
No, never invited.
Yeah, it seems crazy now to think that the Southend were beaming back games to
it seems a bit ahead of its time now, doesn't it?
Yeah. But
We've never done that since, have we?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think it was literally because you could get like 6 people in that away end at Colchester. So.
Yeah.
But didn't I saw on the video, they're on the right-hand side
We
of
had
the
a bit of both.
and that road. But they're also at the other end as well for some reason. I forgot about that.
I was behind the goal, and of course all the goals were in the first half up the other end. So I was up here. Can't see a thing. I think we're 3-0 up. I can't really tell.
That was a good day. I remember that day.
in the home game, was it Mitchell Cole scored, didn't he, bless him? And Sean Gosa got a couple, if I've seen.
Got 2, yeah.
Got 3-1. So, yeah, 6-1 on aggregate. So
we made T-shirts for that one. I don't know if you remember that.
What, for the games again?
Well, I'm not sure if the club made these, but I remember a T-shirt that had like Southend versus Colchester 6-1.
You buy one? Have you got one, really?
No, I haven't got one.
Well, you're going to pop out for a costume change.
I've got a lot of pointless crap from down the years, but no, I never got one of them.
Right. I remember
I've still got all the flags from like the Cardiff games.
Yeah, I've got some of them somewhere, and the foam fingers.
Yeah, probably got one of them knocking about. I've still got my black and yellow scarf from Wembley as well.
Oh yeah, so have I. Yeah, I've still got that. Yeah. I don't know how I even got one, because obviously we didn't get them in the press box.
Yeah, imagine I just draped over the seat in the press box.
Yeah, I don't know. I presume my dad must have got one or something or other. Or I'm not sure if they sold them in the club shop after Wembley. I think I might have bought one. I can't remember. I remember did we win 8 in a row that season?
Yeah, that was that one.
T-shirts and mugs and stuff like that. At that point,
I think there was.
There was a long unbeaten run, weren't there? When was the long unbeaten run? That was in the middle school.
Yeah, the start, wasn't it?
I can't remember. It was 8 or 9. And then we lost.
It was 8. It was 8 wins in a row, and then we lost to Doncaster. Yeah, we always lose to Doncaster.
That was about saying. Even that year we couldn't beat Doncaster.
No, isn't it? We still got knocked out. We won the league, but we still got knocked out of the League Cup in the first round, and we still lost to Doncaster. Like, some things never change.
That season, was that the Southampton in the...
Yeah.
Oh, that was when we became the first club to ever have a frivolous appeal.
Was that the Freddie one?
Yeah, so Freddie had got sent off against
Huddersfield.
And then what had happened was he was getting a 3-game ban. And I think Tilly was actually quite pleased that one of the games was going to be a cup game. So I think he'd prioritised the league, and he was quite glad that Freddie was only going to miss 2 league games rather than 3. Anyway, because of the finances of the cup, and it was on Sky and everything, Ron wanted Freddie to be able to play in the cup. So he appealed the decision. He knows that it delayed the suspension if you appealed. But yeah, the authorities saw through this, and yes,
I can't imagine why.
The first club. And I remember at the time, I'll be honest, I didn't even know what frivolous meant at the time. And I didn't through, and I certainly didn't know how to spell it. And then Tilly put Freddie on the bench. So after all that, didn't even play him anyway. So yeah, that was one of the stories that I'd forgotten about that until I saw the clip of.
I remember him being on the bench. I do remember him being on the bench. Well, you look back, that red card was so soft. That was so soft. Oh yeah, you were going to mention this. Go on.
Yeah, Freddie was on the bench quite a lot when you watch them highlights. Yeah, like when he showed you the first half, James Lawson starts about 8 in a row.
Yeah, he was. He had suspension, didn't he? And then he came back from that, and I think the team had been doing quite well during his suspension. And then he came back, and I think the Yeovil game, he scored 2 in that game. But I think I'm right in saying that he got 2 off the bench that day.
Yeah, the Yeovil game.
Yeah, and then
Who started these games? Did you say Lawson?
James Lawson started a couple.
Yeah, a mixture.
Blimey.
I don't know whatever happened to James Lawson.
I think someone said he's like a carpenter now or something.
I mean, yeah, but he's one that seemed to have.
Nickname was Peanut, wasn't it?
Yeah, I always remember the story with him. There used to be a back in they used to advertise the games along the A127, and there was a big panel out on the left-hand side as you drove down near Alton Garden Centre, and someone had just got out and written across his forehead in massive letters "Chav" or something like that, and it turned out it was one of the other players. But yeah, that was the funny thing as well. Oh yeah. I thought I was getting a bit dark. So
there's no electricity in yours.
Yeah, but there were so many pranks that season that were just some of my funniest stories that you'll ever hear come from that season. I can't remember who stole whose phone, but someone stole Mark Gower's phone on the night out. Started texting Steve Tilson saying that he had special feelings for him. There was another one where they had to. I can't remember the player, but you had to, when it was your birthday, you had to bring the cakes in. And
that's it.
I can't remember. Someone had done it, and they brought in. Oh, I think it was Mark Bentley had done it, and he brought in really, really bad cakes. And in fact, they were so disappointed with these cakes that when they went out for training, they actually smeared it all over his car windows. Back at that time, I used to do a column with Adam Barrett, and we touched on this about the cakes that had been smeared all over the windscreen. And then it was James Lawson's birthday, and James Lawson apparently came in with the most unbelievable range of cakes. He was basically the new Mr. Kipling. Adam said to him, "Oh yeah, that was some spread you brought in," and apparently James Lawson turned around and said, "Yeah, well, to be honest, my nan got them for me. She'd read in the Echo what had happened about Mark Bentley bringing in the bad cakes, and she didn't want that to happen to me." So yeah, they even had good cakes that season.
Good old James Lawson.
Yeah, he's another one we need to try and track down.
Yeah,
good luck with that.
Yeah.
A tax haven in Morocco or somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Yeah. I'll have a look on Google. I did try and I think Adam might have contacted him when we got everyone back together last year. So I think he didn't make it on the night, but I can't remember what happened with that. But yeah, I'll chase that one up, see where he is now.
So yeah, we're getting you busy while we're in lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
these people up.
Yeah, that's why I thought about maybe doing a book or something like that. Because I've got from watching the tweets and everything of this season, I've kind of got a real excitement.
I know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do now that it's all.
Well, now it's finished.
Yeah.
To chase up now.
Highlights from this season, mate. That'd be enough.
Yeah, we'll go. We'll do it this year.
That one was good. You need to find Bart Grimming. There's your person you need to find.
Oh yeah,
that'll be a challenge.
Mark Gower couldn't remember who he was, could he?
Isn't Bart now?
Couldn't remember him.
No, it was brilliant. We did a. Time flies. I'm going to say it was 2 years ago. We did. It was at the Arlington Rooms, and it was Freddie, Adam Barrett, Tilly, Kevin Gower. And someone asked the question, or Bart Grimmick come up, and Mark Gower, he genuinely couldn't remember who Bart Grimmick was. And we had a first half and a second half, and as the first half ended, Mark Gower, the last thing he said was, "Yeah, I'm just off to Google Bart Grimmick." So Adam's at Millwall. Andy Edwards has got a job with England set up. Yeah. Effie Sodge is otherwise engaged. Mark Gower's a scout at Liverpool.
Yeah. I read that thing recently.
Yeah, Mark Bentley's county manager, isn't he?
Of course, yeah.
I think Lee Bradley's been a manager, isn't he?
Yeah, he was at Waterlooville for a bit, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Where was Lee?
Waterlooville, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, right. That's right, yeah.
Freddie's got his own company, hasn't he? So he's not involved in football. But yeah, quite a lot of them.
There's a lot of them though are still involved in some, isn't there?
Yeah. So that probably shows that they were, good quality people as well. Because as people often say in football, it's the good ones that often stay in the game. So yeah, it goes to show we had plenty of good ones in that team.
Something that I want to mention, I had it top of my list, but it never runs in order. You've mentioned like underrated players. So like obviously the key players then were like, if you got Flavs, Adam, Mark Gower, obviously Freddie. How underrated was Kevin Mayer? Because honestly, I've watched those highlights again, and he said it as well. He even stands out in a 0-0.
Yeah.
He's another one that does so much work, doesn't he?
Yeah. And he used to get battered. I remember he used to get so much abuse for going sideways and backwards. Yeah. He's involved in honestly about 85% of the goals we scored that season.
Yeah, I mean, he was a class player, wasn't he? And he was one who, we talked about the step up to the Championship. Well, he got even better. He got Player of the Year that year. And he scored quite a few goals in the Championship season, and he wasn't often renowned for scoring too many because of the kind of role that he played. But I remember him scoring twice against QPR, twice at Preston, and yeah, he was a class player. He kept it ticking over. He had the vision, he kept the ball, and he would be hugely unappreciated, I think, and underrated because of how much he did for that team. And I never understood the criticism that would come his way, because he was such a fantastic player. I think in time, people learned to appreciate him a little bit more. Obviously, I think at Southend and maybe in lower leagues in general, I think fans in particular are more likely to warm to an all-action midfielder who flies into tackles, like your Gary Deegan, for instance, or Alan McCormack, or people like that. They got a lot of fan support because of the way that they were. But Kev was a very intelligent player, so he often didn't need to jump in and make the tackles because he'd read that situation perfectly in the first place. And his ability on the ball was one of the best I've seen in a Southend shirt. So he's a massive part of that team. And if I pick my all-time Southend team that I've seen, then Kevin Mayer is definitely in the centre of the park.
He was intelligent footballer, very intelligent footballer. I was surprised. Did you say he got real loads of sticks, Scott?
Yeah, he used to get terrible abuse. Like, I'm not that season, not the season we saw, but like sort of late 90s, like early 2000s. He'd get terrible stick.
Yeah, you've got to be careful what you wish for, haven't you? Because he's just such a servant to the club. So many of them were, and he's just through and through Southend.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, should never have been allowed to leave, but that's a different story for a different time.
No, that was a massive error. But I think as well, that was the nice thing about that team, is that there was an affinity between the players and the fans, because a lot of them had been there quite a long time. So Darryl had been there a few years. Adam, I mean, you can't not love Adam. He's sort of like one of the nicest men in football. Obviously, Mark Gower had been there quite a while. Kev, Freddie, Tilly, they were local guys, and they'd been there a long time. So because of that, there was a real affinity between the fans and the players, and I think that made it that extra special, because you almost felt part of it yourself as a fan. You almost felt like you knew them, really. So Spencer Pryor was local, Andy Edwards had come through the youth system, so that's what made it extra special. And I think that's something else that's been lost. I mean, there hasn't been much continuity in recent seasons, so maybe that hasn't been allowed to develop, really, because of the financial problems. Players have come and gone quite quickly. But that was one of my favourite things of that team, was that quite a lot of them played 250, 300 games for the club and were there 6-7 seasons. And because of that, you went through the trials and tribulations with them, and you almost felt as if you knew them yourself. And that's why the fans got behind that team. It wasn't just because of the results, but also because I think they felt part of it themselves.
That was a great couple of 3 years, weren't it? A great couple of 3 years, like the two promotions, obviously the cup games and such like over the year after. It was a good time to watch football at Roos Hall.
Yeah,
and the parades and everything. I mean, they were great.
The parades become second to nothing, didn't they? Down the seafront, thousands. You know, imagine that now.
Yeah,
that's on the DVD. There's footage of the parade on there.
Is there?
Oh, is there?
It's mental. It's mental because like the seafront is just rammed.
Yeah, because I think we were actually on the bus. I don't quite know how we managed.
I noticed you. One thing made me laugh. You're on the pitch at the end of the Swansea game.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, am I? I'm a hooligan.
I'm sure it's you.
Yeah, we did go. Yeah, that was the day.
Because there's someone there, and he's not in like club tracksuit gear. He's in like just normal clothes. I'm sure
that was the day that didn't Freddie drop an F-bomb live on air, Nick?
Oh, that happened regularly at that time. Everywhere.
Pretty sure.
We had fans with F-bombs. I remember Kevin Hurst with an F-bomb when we got promoted to a cup final or something or other up to JPT, and he was effing and swearing. Thanks, Kevin, for your thoughts. So I'll leave it there.
The worst thing about that Swansea game I remember is that I was on the radio with you, Nick. I don't mean that was the worst thing about it. And the game had finished, and the Southend fans were all celebrating, and the players were all jumping up and down celebrating. And I think I'm right in saying that BBC Essex had sent, I think it was Ben. I think they sent Ben Fryer to Brentford v Hartlepool, and the result had to stay the same for Southend to get promotion. And the game was still going. There was still 2 or 3 minutes to go. Now, all the Southend players, I think Luke Guthrie was in his pants by this point. All the players were jumping up and down. And I was just thinking, oh, my God, this is going to be so Southend if suddenly Brentford scored.
Actually, it would have been, wouldn't it?
and we're not going to get promotion, and we're just going to have to sort of walk off the pitch with our tail between our legs to a certain degree. But thankfully, that didn't happen, and it was all right, F-bombs aside.
There was about 2 minutes, weren't there? We finished about 2 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Than that other game. I couldn't remember who it was, but we finished 2 minutes earlier. And I remember Ben there.
Yeah, that's right. But it seemed a lot longer than 2 minutes at the time, didn't it?
Always.
Is the dog okay?
Yeah, she's getting very excited. She's just remembering about Swansea away, I think. I can't get her. She's in the other room, so just have to...
No, it's mad because that was obviously before a time of like social media. You couldn't really check the scores. That stuff wasn't readily available. Like that was a time where people were still with a little radio to their ear in the stand, and it was just like it was all Chinese whispers.
Yeah, because you wouldn't really have had
an anxious wait.
Yeah, in a way that was quite nice in a way. And nowadays, when you get to the final game of the season, I know that wasn't the final game of the season, but you always get incorrect scores, don't you? I remember, was it Grimsby away on the last day that year when that failed miserably, and then in more recent times it was Bury at home and Bristol away was Millwall, and some person cheers and then someone else cheers.
That's it. It needs one person to start cheering.
And 9 times out of 10 it's wrong anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
you get players like asking someone that's sitting right behind the dugout, what's the score in that game?
Yeah, the weirdest thing about, I know it's going slightly off topic, but that game when we played Bury, Ron actually instructed the PA announcer to read out the Millwall score. Every time there was a goal, he wanted it read out to the crowd. So
just, I guess, try and crowd with atmosphere, I guess, but a bit odd.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you can do that. Can you?
No, I'm not sure.
I don't think you can do it now.
I think it's like I think for some weird reason it goes against betting regulations. I'm not sure you can publish live scores. You can do half time and full time, but if the game's still going on, I'm not sure you can do it.
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, but great days.
Yeah.
It was. I think that was one of the best times doing the radio as well. There's some really good games in that. You remember there was some good, seeing your stuff on the Twitter, seeing the goals. You just think there's some good goals there, really good players. You remember that was great.
And even the season before that.
Sorry, I was going to say, what game for you sort of made you think, actually, we can do this? What was not necessarily a turning point? What was the point where you thought, I'll tell you what, we actually can do this?
The game because I remember going into that season, and I remember thinking, because we hadn't really been in League One for a while, And I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be a massive step up. And we got to the playoffs, and that meant we had less time to prepare. We lost on the first game of the season, and I'm sort of thinking, oh, God, here we go. But the 2 games early doors that stick out for me, we won at Bradford. I remember going to Bradford and thinking, oh, wow, this is great. Because other than cup games, up until that point, I'd never really seen Southend play at a stadium like that. Mm-hmm. And we won that night. But I think the game for me, when I actually realised how good that Southend team was Yeovil at home. I think we were losing 1-0 at half-time. Phil Jevons probably scored. I don't know if he did, but he normally,
Nathan Jones did.
Normally does. Yeah. And then second half, I think we scored 4 goals in quite quick succession. Freddie got 2 off the bench, and it really was like, wow, like, do you know what? This Southend team's actually class, and you can quite easily get carried away. And talking as a fan, you do, don't you? You win one game and you think, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to win this and win that. Maybe not this season, but in the past, you tend to get carried away. But at that point, you kind of thought, well, we've got the momentum, we've got the players. The only thing that could possibly have derailed that side was injuries and suspensions, because the squad wasn't the biggest. But yeah, that to me would be the Yeovil game that initially stood out, and I really realised just how good that Southend team was, and that they were more than capable of being able to compete at a League One level.
I remember going on a run. I remember the run. I can't remember individual games like Chris can. He's very clever. But I remember the run. I remember going on a run, and you're thinking, right, he's going well. Didn't we, in there somewhere, didn't we beat Forest here at Southend?
Yeah, that was on the telly. Yeah, 1-0.
Was that? And wasn't there the fire at the pier just after that, the day after?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I remember that. I still remember that. I remember there was the game against Forest, and then there was the fire at the pier. But yeah, so you just think, well, if they can beat Forest, they have something about them. But going into the season, once you're going, well, if they have mid-table obscurity, thanks very much. Just stay in the new division, that'll be fine. Yeah. But they go on that run as well. It's great.
Look, we only really signed, on top of my head, like a main player was Goater in summer, wasn't it? Really, the main sort of.
Yeah, Campbell Rice came in as well, didn't he? And Soji.
Oh yeah, but obviously, yeah.
That wasn't in the summer, was it?
I think Campbell Rice come in the summer, but then left in Jan because only on loan. Is that right? Or
I think he sort of came in about September. Yeah, and it's also
Mitchell
weird
Cole
to think
was
that.
a summer signing.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Cole and Goater. I think. Well, yeah, quite possibly the only summer signings.
And we had Mark Wright, didn't we? Who was in Tower.
Yeah, we had Mark Wright.
One. He was in the squad, wasn't he?
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, he was on the bench.
I remember that.
He's not that I'm one to cast aspersions or anything, but I'll let you draw your own conclusions. His dad was Freddie Eastwood's agent. But I remember another game that sticks out for me is Chesterfield away.
Yeah, that was a massive one.
Freddie got a hat-trick. But I also remember, do you remember the Chesterfield fans screaming abuse in your face, Nick?
Oh, yeah, I put them straight, though. And to be fair, they did that at Yeovil as well. The 2 old boys at Yeovil. I told them to sit down and keep it quiet.
Yeah, it's very weird, because in some of these grounds, obviously, the commentary box is in among their fans. So, obviously, Nick gets excited when Southend scores, so the volume levels reach a huge crescendo. and they really don't like it, so they turn around and the guy at Yeovil was like proper giving it the middle finger treatment. And the guy at Chesterfield, to be fair, it was quite a harsh red card. And this guy really didn't like it. And he was screaming in our face, calling us like effing cheats and effing this and effing that.
Like it's your fault.
Yeah, obviously we decided to send their player off. So, yeah, it's things like that perhaps you don't see.
Poor old Chesterfield round.
So yeah, that was another entertaining element of that game, which we won 4-3. So
that was a big one. I think it's just that run we went on, winning 8 in a row. You think that we can certainly compete at this level, but it was still very early on in the season. I think that was like early October. There's still so many games to play, but I think it was that Chesterfield game where we won 4-3. I think, we came from behind at one point. 1-0 down, 2-1 up, 3-2 down, and then we obviously eventually win 4-3. I think that was the one for me. I was like, we can actually go up. I didn't think we'd necessarily win the title, but I thought we can go up here.
Yeah, and I think the Colchester game was quite quickly after that as well. So I think that probably that manner of that victory would have inspired a lot more confidence in the team and everything like that. And I seem to think that the very next away game after that was actually the game at Colchester where they were rubbish.
They were sponsored by the Skip Company. They're rubbish. Poor old Colch.
It was. You're right. I've got them written down. It was Chesterfield and Colchester with the back-to-back.
Yeah, I seriously need to. I should get.
He remembers. 15 years later, he remembers.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm sad. I'm not going to admit it. I'm not going to deny it. At least I look at it that at least we have had those moments, and on top of that, obviously you've had the cup games, your Chelsea's and Man United. So although there have been a lot of times when it's been depressing and it's been really hard going on the games and tough to watch, and so many things going on off the pitch, I think that almost makes the good times even better. Now, if you support Man City or your Chelsea's or your Liverpool's right now, your emotions are probably quite like that, and then just go up a bit. Whereas Southend, the range of emotions that you get supporting a club, and I guess all lower league fans would probably say the same, that 1 minute you're lower than the snake's belly, and then the next year on cloud nine. So I think that's the appealing thing for me about supporting a lower league tie is that you do probably appreciate the good times even more because they're so few and far between.
It is about appreciating it. Just appreciate the good times because there are a lot of low times. Not everybody's going to get promoted. 23, 22, whatever, 21 teams aren't going to get promoted. Enjoy it when you get promoted. Enjoy it when you have a good time, when you have a good game. And, just because it's so low, sometimes you think, well, we've had some good times as well.
Yeah, 100%.
It is important to remember that. It's easy to not think like that at the time, though, because you just think, oh, this is great.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we've got back-to-back promotions. Like, we're really good. We're going to go and do it again. Like, obviously it doesn't work like that. Like, I wish it did. Sure. But, it's nice to have the technology to have been able to look back at it, definitely.
Yeah, that's the extra. I mean, I'm older than you, and I remember the promotions in the early 90s. That was when I first started supporting Southend. The first season was when they won at Bury, and there's hardly any footage of that, which is unfortunate. I think I got a video somewhere, but I don't know if you can transform that onto DVD.
You can. I think obviously you can't do it right now, but like when everything's back up and running, I think places like Snappy Snaps do it. They
but it's just nice to have, like you said, to be able to look back on, because you forget things, don't you? And you forget the saves or the red card or the miss just before the goal, and it brings it all back and memories. Like I said, the Chesterfield game, you watch that and you think, oh yeah, that was the guy. That was the day the guy went mad. And it'll be the same for all fans. They all have their own individual stories from all the games, the people that they went with, the pubs they went to, where they ate, everything. And that's another great side to football. And what we're all missing at the moment is not necessarily on the pitch, but the friends and the familiarity of following a club like Southend. Everyone, and that. Oh,
definitely. That's what kind of, with this period of like isolation that we're all in now, that's what I'm still missing. Like, the football on the pitch, like, we don't need to go into it. We all know it's been terrible for like 2 years now. But it's those 90 minutes on a Saturday, or the hour and a half in the pub beforehand or after, where you get to see your mates for a bit. That's the release that takes everything else away for that period, those few hours on a Saturday.
It's like we miss all those
memories.
Yeah. You miss it. You miss the football, and you miss doing the radio and that. But you miss I missed like some of the long journeys going up to wherever, Rochdale, with Chris and Pennyfather in the car, and you just miss that. You just miss the long journeys. I don't think Chris would think that.
Yeah. Chris, you say that? Are you just saying you're missing me?
Yeah. Well,
sounded like a roundabout way of saying he's missing you, Chris.
I think that's the first time anyone's ever said that.
You do miss the experience of a Saturday as well as the football. You miss the experience of Saturday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, massively. Saturdays now don't even feel like Saturdays because it just seems so redundant. It just seems like one massive Sunday.
I've just got a massive Sunday. I've had a massive Sunday. So
the world's
the longest Sunday we are.
But yeah, it's.
I mean, I don't miss leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning when Nick decides that we need to go early. But
see, I kind of do. I'd love like a long away day now.
Yeah,
One game that we haven't spoke about on the season where we won the league was the title winning game. We spoke loads about the Swansea game. We haven't spoke about the Bristol City game. Was
that Wayne Gray's goal?
That was Wayne Gray's goal. We had to wear the away kit because quite a few of the players had chucked shirts and shorts into the crowd at Swansea, and we didn't have enough home kit for everyone to wear, so we had to wear the away kit. Surely there was a couple of shirts in the club shop that would have sufficed.
Yeah, that was a great day though.
Yeah, that was good.
I remember. It was Sean Goater's last game, wasn't it? And there wasn't another theme to wear bright.
The Bermudan Bonanza Day. It was.
Yeah, I'm glad you pronounced that. I would have been all over the place. And I seem to remember everyone was in sort of like bright, really bright coloured shirts, and there were fans from Manchester City and some of the Goat's other clubs that had come down.
He played for Bristol City as well, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It was quite fitting.
So I think that it was just one of the most memorable days that we'd had. I remember going on the pitch. Yeah, that's right, Poppy.
Where's the dog?
Going on the pitch at the end of the game as a hooligan again, and saw my mum and dad on the pitch and some of my mates from school, and it was just moments like that are really sort of, as we touched on before, few and far between. So that was a great day. I remember that Kevin May, the players seem to remember coming out individually or in pairs to walk their way up onto the podium, and then Kev came out last to pick up the trophy, and the noise was just unreal, wasn't it? I remember Sid Broomfield, blessed him as well. I think he carried out the trophy, which was a really nice touch as well. So yeah, that would definitely be one of my favourite days, because I think we would have won the league even if it had been 0-0.
I think you're right.
So as such, Wayne Gray's goal didn't actually win us the league as such, if you want to be geeky. But it was just so fitting that's how the season ended, in virtually the last minute of the last game was just that moment, and it was just the perfect way to finish it all off. I mean, if we'd won the league and that game had ended 0-0, then I don't think no one would have complained at all. But I think the fact that we won that day with a late goal, it just summed up what the whole season had been about, really, and the scenes after. Everyone was on the pitch because we hadn't actually been. We almost limped over that's probably our worst run of form that last month or so.
Yeah, it wasn't
great. We had a few home defeats, hadn't we? So we hadn't actually been in that great form towards the end. So no, it was the perfect way to finish the season, really, and it was quite fitting that's how it did end.
Yeah. I remember the presentation and everything with Kevin lifting it. I can't remember anything of that game. I remember more of the Swansea game than I do of that.
That's weird. So do I. I remember the goal. I remember Wayne Gray's goal. But apart from that,
that's all I remember about the game. It can't have been the best of games, in fairness, can it?
They never are they? When a team has already been promoted, you've kind of done the hard bit. To a degree, you almost have taken your foot off the gas a little bit.
Yeah,
but then
you're right.
You obviously we did still go on and win it, but a lot of times teams do get caught out in those sorts of games.
Yeah, 100%. So no, it was just a really special. I mean, it was over 11,000 there, wasn't there? And it was just.
I always think it's good when you can even see the South Lower packed. That's when you know you've got a good crowd in. Because no one's choosing to sit there first choice. That's when there's nothing else left. You can't see a thing.
No, you can only see players' heads, can't you?
Yeah, you're below the pitch level.
Yeah. But no, that would definitely be my top 3 games. That's in it. Lincoln. And
you've jumped the queue. That was
sorry.
No, go on. That was my final question.
That season
Favourite game from that season? If you had to pick
from that season, well, so it's either Swansea or for the actual what it meant. Obviously, Swansea or Bristol City. But if you're taking it as just the best game, then I would say the 4-3 at Chesterfield was the most entertaining encounter as just that 90 minutes alone. But as my favourite, it would be Bristol City and Swansea. But I'd probably say Bristol City just because it was at Roots Hall when we lifted the title.
See, I really enjoyed the Swansea game and the Colchester away game.
Yeah, that was good as well.
Just because obviously we're doing the split commentary, so Neil's doing one commentary for Colch, and I'm doing Southend, and just the day is really good, and it's going up there, you see them, and Southend won.
Yeah, no, that was good. What about you two?
Go on,
Swansea for me. Swansea for me. Gotta be.
I'm gonna go something different then. I'm gonna go for another game that I didn't really, earlier we spoke about when did you think we could actually do this.
You're not going to go to left field and go 2-1 away defeat at Paul Vale.
No, I'm going to go for Brentford at home where we beat them 4-1.
Oh, that was a good one.
Because they were another team that were right up there with us and we absolutely battered them. They were good and they weren't necessarily poor on the day either. We were just irresistible.
I think we had 3 defenders score that day.
Yeah, Sodgy scored.
Barrett, Shea Wilson.
And then Shea Wilson scored, didn't he?
Good old Shea. Well
I think Gower got the other one.
Gower, I think, yeah.
Right, my final question. I really hope one of you know the answer to this or can provide some sort of insight into this.
It'll be Chris.
I'm under pressure now.
The Oldham away game.
Oh, the kit.
The kit. What was that all about?
Do you know what, actually? It's quite funny because it would have been you guys when you put the tweet out and I did Flavs. I think Flavs made quite a few saves that day. And I've been sending some of the clips to Flavs. I interviewed him today, actually. So I've been in contact with him about doing this story. So when the tweets have been coming up with him, with his saves, I've been sending them to him.
Yeah.
So I sent that to him, and nobody's got any idea whatsoever. Kev, in that team, Kev would remember more than most.
Someone tagged him in the tweet, and he said, "Oh, yeah, I remember."
So if he doesn't know, then I don't think any of the other players would, because he's the one who remembers most of them. I don't know, because it's all our kit, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's not like we forgot the kit and had to borrow some. But that
was goalkeeping jerseys similar?
No,
I
don't know.
So what did we wear in the end? Did we wear the red?
We wore the white and black shirt, the away shirt, with the third kit, shorts and socks. So red shorts and socks with the white and black shirt.
All I can imagine is that they wore dark blue. So maybe the referee thought that our black shorts were too similar to their blue.
Oh, no, do you know what? Shorts. It was probably the ref thinking it was going to clash with him.
Yeah. Well, that is
no idea. Or just a kick cock up. It was just a mistake.
Maybe someone's just brought... Because it's just so bad. It's baffled me for years. It's like the most ridiculous kick combination I've ever seen as well.
I remember days when I've seen Southend have to wear the other team's kit. And I remember games at Roots Hall where we've had to wear our away kit, and there's been some strange conundrums and kits worn over the years, but that's definitely up there with the worst, I think.
Yeah. But that game finished 0-0, but it's a memorable game because of what we had to wear.
Yeah. Maybe it was like non-school uniform day. Maybe they all just played the pound. And it all went to charity. Cool. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
No worries.
Well done.
Take care.
See you later.
Take care, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.